I kept a lot of Cassie's jeans. I take her lingerie. Mainly just the jeans. Hi, Glamour.
A strawberry blonde, blue-eyed woman marketing having great jeans.
Yeah, no, this is crazy.
Sydney Sweeney just did something that has the internet spiraling. And depending on who you ask, it's either an innocent ad or a dog whistle for something much darker. How did one of Hollywood's most beloved rising stars go from IT girl to icon of internet outrage? This isn't just about a pair of jeans, it's about what those jeans represent. There are some celebrities who build their careers brick by brick, grinding for years before anyone remembers their name. And then there's Sydney Sweeney. In what felt like an overnight transformation, Sydney went from background actress to full-blown cultural obsession. Her breakout role as Cassie in HBO's Euphoria didn't just put her on the map, it tattooed her into the internet's memory.
If anyone from American Eagle who was involved in the creation of Sydney Sweeney's...
Cassie wasn't written to be likable. She was messy, unfiltered, emotionally explosive, everything people usually hate in a female character. But Sydney didn't just play her, she owned her. There was something magnetic about how raw the performance was. Viewers didn't always know how to feel about Cassie, but they couldn't look away, and that made Sydney a star. The memes came fast. The iconic "I have never ever been happier" meltdown, that was everywhere. People dressed up as her for Halloween. They reenacted scenes on TikTok. Even people who hated the show had something to say about her character. And while Euphoria was already known for pushing boundaries, it was Sydney's scenes.
Why is everyone boycotting Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle ad? It's just that bad. First, her ad lines sparked a lot of controversy.
Often vulnerable, often sexualized, that sparked the most conversations. But here's where it got interesting. Instead of backlash, Sydney got something rare: protection. Online, people rallied around her, not just because of how she looked, but because of what she represented. A young woman in a brutal industry taking on emotionally and physically exposing roles and seemingly doing it on her own terms. She spoke openly about being comfortable with nudity on screen. She set boundaries. She made it clear, this is my choice. And people respected her for that. For a while, Sydney was the exception to the internet's rule. You couldn't cancel her, you couldn't hate watch her.
Sydney Sweeney's new American Eagle jeans ad has filled the internet with juicy hot takes. Critics say it's tone-deaf for using sex appeal to...
She was that rare combination of talented, relatable, and just mysterious enough to keep people guessing. And then came the car thing. She posted photos working on vintage vehicles, covered in grease, smiling in a tank top, and the internet short-circuited. Some called it a pick-me move. Others accused her of faking it. But her real fans pushed back hard. Let her like what she likes, they said. She's not playing a role, she's just cool. In the sea of try-hard influencers and painfully curated stars, Sydney felt like a breath of fresh air. She wasn't performing for the camera, she just was. And that made her easy to root for.
Genes are passed on from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality.
By 2022, she had become more than a breakout actress. She was a symbol, an IT girl with a soft edge, a sex symbol with soul, the kind of woman who made people think maybe fame hasn't ruined everyone yet. And yet, that kind of pedestal comes with a dangerous price, because the higher the internet lifts you up, the more satisfying it is when they watch you fall. And for Sydney, that fall didn't begin with a role or a scandal. It started with a birthday party. It was supposed to be harmless, a simple birthday celebration for her mom, country-themed, family-friendly, the kind of thing you'd post on your Instagram story and forget about by morning.
Sydney Sweeney represents like a Nazi white supremacy issue. Do you think it's that deep, and do you think attack...
But Sydney Sweeney didn't just post a few photos. She posted a controversy. Because in the background of those innocent snapshots, viewers spotted something they couldn't unsee. Guests wearing MAGA-style hats and Blue Lives Matter shirts. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't photoshopped, and it wasn't ignored. The internet exploded, comments flooded in, accusations flew. Was Sydney Sweeney quietly supporting far-right politics? Was she using her fame to normalize a movement tied to racial division, police brutality, and extremist ideology? Or was this just a case of bad optics at a family event she didn't control?
Take down Sydney Sweeney! Take down Sydney Sweeney! Hey, hi, excuse me, what's going on?
Sydney responded fast, but vaguely. You guys, this is wild. An innocent celebration for my mom's milestone 60th birthday has turned into an absurd political statement, which was not the intention. Please stop making assumptions. It wasn't exactly damage control, it was more like damage deflection. She didn't apologize, she didn't clarify her own stance. She didn't condemn anything, she just asked people to stop talking. And that silence spoke volumes. Because when you're a public figure with millions of fans, many of whom are queer, progressive, or part of marginalized communities, saying nothing feels like saying everything. The internet had seen this before.
These jeans were made in Bangladesh, or maybe China. It's true. Cotton.
Taylor Swift once faced the same backlash when she stayed quiet during political chaos, and it nearly derailed her entire public image. But unlike Swift, Sydney didn't pivot. She didn't speak up. She didn't reclaim the narrative. And in that vacuum, a new fan base moved in. Conservative men who once felt alienated by progressive Hollywood suddenly saw Sydney as their ideal. Beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed, and most importantly, quiet. Not opinionated, not political, not woke. She had become a blank canvas they could project their fantasies onto. And they did.
What they're really taking most of all is the angle that there is something peculiarly Nazi about all of this. She has great genes.
And that's where the tone started to shift. Sydney wasn't just a celebrity anymore. She was becoming a symbol for something she never explicitly endorsed but never openly rejected either. And from that moment on, things just kept getting messier. If the mega party was Sydney Sweeney's first stumble, the bathwater saga was her full-on faceplant. It started with an ad. Not for luxury perfume, not for a prestige film, for soap with a twist. Sydney had partnered with a brand called Dr. Squatch to release a special product. And in the ad, the company strongly implied that the soap was made with Sydney's actual bathwater.
American Eagle has released an official statement responding to the backlash they received after the Sydney Sweeney Good Jeans advertisement that they put out.
Yes, you heard that right, her bathwater. Cue the internet's collective, what the hell is going on? To be fair, the whole thing was tongue-in-cheek, a parody of the infamous Belle Delphine stunt. A joke, sort of. But Sydney wasn't some Twitch e-girl playing up internet irony. She was an A-list actress, or at least she used to be. So, why was she suddenly marketing herself like a meme? That's the part no one could figure out. Because while the ad was weird and vaguely gross, it wasn't accidental. It was calculated. Sydney knew exactly what audience she was speaking to. And it wasn't her Euphoria fans. It wasn't critics. It wasn't even the mainstream. It was the gooners.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color.
The part of the internet obsessed with fetishized, hypersexualized content. The corners where bathwater isn't a joke, it's currency. Where celebrity worship turns into something a lot darker. And Sydney wasn't just playing along. She was selling to them directly. Some fans defended it. They said it was satire. They said she was in control. Others weren't so sure. Because while no one's shaming her for embracing sex appeal, this felt different. It wasn't empowering, it wasn't edgy, it was pandering and not to a respectful crowd. The real question wasn't, is this ad offensive? It was, why is someone at her level doing this at all?
Just come out and say it. Say y'all hate white people. It's okay. Be honest.
This wasn't some desperate influencer looking for clicks. This was someone who had been on the cover of Vogue, someone who starred in Emmy-nominated dramas, someone who, not long ago, was being groomed for prestige cinema. And now, she was hawking meme soap to anonymous men online who saw her less as an actress and more as a fantasy. Some chalked it up to financial anxiety. Sydney had once spoken about how unstable acting income can be. Maybe she was just trying to secure the bag. Maybe she was leveraging her image before the spotlight faded. But if that's the case, what does it say about the industry or us that this is how women monetize fame now?
Karens are big mad about Sydney Sweeney.
Sydney Sweeney fatigue. Let's talk about eugenics and racism.
Even more disturbing was how comfortably Sydney leaned into it. She didn't blink. She didn't laugh it off. She embraced it. And just like that, her public perception shifted again. This time, not into controversy, but confusion. Was she trolling the internet, or was this who she had become? Just when the bathwater buzz started to die down, Sydney dropped another bombshell, and this one hit way harder. It was an ad campaign for American Eagle. Simple enough: jeans, denim, soft lighting, model poses. But there was one line that stopped people in their tracks. Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Clever, right? A play on words, jeans as in pants, genes as in DNA.
Weigh in on this, but here we go. It is so difficult to grow up as a person of color, specifically a woman, and view your...
Except that's where it all went wrong. Because this wasn't just a pun. The campaign leaned hard into Sydney's appearance, her blonde hair, blue eyes, and impossibly symmetrical face. The visuals paired with that line, great genes, started sounding less like fashion and more like eugenics. People weren't just confused, they were disturbed. Was this a subtle nod to white supremacist ideals? A wink to a very specific kind of purity culture? Was American Eagle really highlighting Sydney's genetics in 2025 after everything we've seen from brands trying to be inclusive?
And I would never actually do this, like ever. But I think it's...
The comparisons came fast. People recalled Calvin Klein's old, now infamous Brooke Shields ads, sexualized, creepy, and made when she was underage. Others noted how the American Eagle campaign felt like a regression, a throwback to the early 2000s, obsession with whiteness, thinness, and Eurocentric beauty. But this was supposed to be the modern American Eagle, a brand that had been praised for featuring models of different sizes, genders, and ethnicities. And suddenly, here they were, centering a campaign around the message: this is the ideal, this is the standard.
I will be the friend that's too woke because those Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ads are weird, like fascist weird.
And of course, it just so happened to look a lot like Sydney Sweeney. Whether or not the messaging was intentional didn't seem to matter anymore. It felt like a dog whistle. Maybe not to the average viewer, but to those tuned in to a certain aesthetic, a certain ideology. One that doesn't say the quiet part out loud, but doesn't have to. And Sydney, she said nothing. Not a word about the backlash, no clarification, no denouncement. No, hey, this was just a pun. Let's not read into it. She let the fire burn again, which raised an even bigger question. Was she clueless or complicit? Because one time can be a fluke. 2 times may be a coincidence, but by the 3rd, people start connecting dots. By now, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Sydney Sweeney wasn't just showing up in questionable campaigns, she was becoming the face of something no one could quite name, but everyone could feel. Blonde, blue-eyed, hyper-feminine, silent, safe, marketable to both men who idolize her and brands that want to flirt with controversy without saying anything outright. This wasn't just about a pair of jeans or a party. This was something bigger, something more calculated. Some people started calling it aesthetic fascism, the quiet rebranding of right-wing ideals under layers of soft lighting and nostalgic vibes.
you've got a Sydney Sweeney Nazi propaganda controversy playing out right now, right? Because if you haven't seen, there's been this debate playing out after her...
The return of the trad wife fantasy, the obsession with a woman who is beautiful, feminine, and, most importantly, non-threatening. Not outspoken, not political, not messy, just pretty, just palatable. And Sydney fit the mold perfectly. The right-wing internet loved her because she never pushed back. She never clapped back. She didn't disrupt the fantasy. She was the anti-Lizzo, the anti-Greta, the anti-Billie Eilish. No body positivity slogans, no political statements, no rainbow flags or angry tweets, just blonde hair, blue eyes, perfect skin, and silence. The culture was shifting, and Sydney was either riding the wave or being used by it. And she wasn't alone.
Whether she's got good genes or not, I don't know, but she's definitely got a great nose for marketing because she not long ago brought out soap.
JoJo Siwa suddenly ditched her glitter and bows persona for a bizarre rebrand dripping in retro trad aesthetics. Jessie Murph, another pop darling, dropped a hit romanticizing the 1960s, complete with a music video that felt like a submission to conservative TikTok. Even mainstream media started leaning into this soft-focus vision of femininity that looked suspiciously like whitewashed nostalgia. It wasn't overt fascism, it was something sneakier, a vibe, a mood, an aesthetic that looks innocent until you realize what it's echoing. Sydney, she was its poster child. She wasn't making political speeches. She wasn't shouting from podiums.
So the message that's communicated, you think, covertly in a way, is what?
But by saying nothing, over and over again, she was saying something. Because in a world where silence is strategic, neutrality isn't neutral anymore. And whether she meant to or not, Sydney had become more than an actress. She was now a signal to brands, to viewers, and to movements that thrive in ambiguity. After the American Eagle campaign dropped, the backlash came fast and loud. Some people were genuinely disturbed, others were just tired. Tired of defending Sydney, tired of giving her the benefit of the doubt, tired of squinting through layers of plausible deniability, wondering if it was really that deep or if they were just imagining things. But the internet doesn't sit still, it splits.
Propaganda. Girl, be serious. Sydney Sweeney walked out in jeans and a tank top. Didn't even say a word.
One side saw the ad and said, "This is fascist-coded garbage. She knows what she's doing." The other side screamed back, "Relax. It's just denim. She's not responsible for every word in a campaign. You're projecting." And caught in the middle, a confused, frustrated audience, mostly women, who had once fiercely defended Sydney and now felt betrayed by her silence. Because this wasn't about jealousy or cancel culture or some internet witch hunt. This was about a growing pattern of choices and non-choices that added up to something people couldn't ignore anymore. The same fans who had once shielded her from misogynistic backlash.
Commercial opens on Sydney Sweeney's face, and she says, "Every production, stage or film, relies heavily on..."
Were now questioning whether they ever really knew who they were protecting. Maybe they had projected too much onto her. Maybe they saw vulnerability where there was only blank space. Maybe she wasn't a cool girl quietly surviving Hollywood. Maybe she was just another brand selling whatever sold best. The worst part, she never said anything to correct that narrative. She didn't denounce the far-right fan base that suddenly claimed her. She didn't clarify the intention behind the American Eagle ad. She didn't acknowledge the Goonbait bathwater campaign or explain why someone of her caliber was even doing it. And without answers, people started filling in the blanks. Because when a woman who became famous for her vulnerability...
Did I miss the part where jeans are a weapon of mass destruction? Like last time I checked, American...
stops being vulnerable, stops being human. She becomes something else. Something colder, something curated, a product. It wasn't that people expected Sydney to become a political activist. They didn't need her to speak at marches or write manifestos. They just wanted something real, a line, a boundary, a flicker of self-awareness. But all they got was another silent ad, another brand partnership, another step deeper into this surreal rebrand from fan favorite to culture war icon. And as the weeks passed, it became painfully clear. The internet hadn't just fallen out of love with Sydney Sweeney, it had woken up. At this point, the question isn't what Sydney Sweeney did, it's what she didn't.
As crossed out, and now we have it replaced with the word genes as what's produced in our DNA.
She didn't speak up when people questioned her political associations. She didn't explain why she leaned into male-gazy marketing stunts. She didn't reject the creepy fan base that slowly claimed her. And she didn't distance herself from a campaign that eerily flirted with fascist-coded messaging. And maybe that's the most frustrating part, because none of it was overt. None of it was violent or outrageous on its face. It was all just vague enough to pass as ignorance, just quiet enough to be brushed off, and just stylized enough to feel like art, not ideology. But for a generation that grew up dissecting media, we know better. We've learned how to read the dog whistles.
Panda, what in the hell is this? That ad literally made me so just sick. I'm like, oh, like something like.
We've seen what happens when aesthetic is used to smuggle in harmful ideas under the radar. We've watched influencers and celebrities lean into the trad wife fantasy, not because they believe in it, but because it sells. And maybe that's exactly what Sydney Sweeney is doing. Maybe she doesn't believe in any of it. Maybe she's not far right, not conservative, not even politically engaged. Maybe she's just riding the wave that favors white, silent, non-confrontational femininity. Because it's safe, because it's profitable, because in a collapsing Hollywood, that's what brands are asking for. But that doesn't make it harmless, because culture isn't shaped just by who yells the loudest.
Say what you will, but it's very clear people are pulling at straws here. But you be the judge.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring.
It's shaped by who gets platformed without saying anything, by who becomes the symbol for a movement, even if they never asked to be, by who benefits from staying neutral when others can't afford to. And Sydney, she's benefited more than most. Maybe she's not flying the flag, but she's standing next to it, smiling while someone else holds it up behind her. And if you're still wondering why all of this feels so surreal, why it feels like we're watching a parody of cultural collapse play out in real time, it's because it kind of is. Sydney Sweeney isn't preaching traditional values. She's not anti-sex. She's not anti-feminist. She's still posing in lingerie, still starring in racy roles, still doing everything she did before.
What is wrong with anything in this advertisement? This seems to be simply a return to normal.
But now, she's also a symbol of the right's rebranded ideal because they've decided she is. And she hasn't corrected them. That's why this feels so dystopian. Because we're watching culture bend in real time. We're watching beauty and branding and silence become the new propaganda. And half the internet is applauding because they're too numb to notice anymore. Maybe Sydney didn't mean for any of this to happen. Maybe she's just a woman trying to survive in a machine she can't control. Or maybe she knows exactly what she's doing and she's betting that we'll keep watching anyway. Because at the end of the day, Sydney Sweeney still has great genes. And to some people, apparently, that's all that matters.
Who she has around her that would even allow for something like this to happen. I honestly don't.
In the end, this isn't just a story about Sydney Sweeney. It's about what happens when silence becomes strategy. When brands play both sides. When public figures benefit from ambiguity and never pay the price for it. Sydney didn't crash and burn. She didn't have a meltdown or a scandal that ended her career. She just pivoted. Quietly, strategically, into a space where being beautiful and apolitical is safer than being bold and honest. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. Because the culture isn't shifting all at once, it's happening subtly through ads, aesthetics, symbols, and silence. Through people like Sydney who don't need to say anything because their image does the talking for them. It's easy to think we're overreacting, that it's just marketing that it's not that deep. But deep down, a lot of us feel it. Something's off. And when the people we once rooted for start aligning, intentionally or not, with the very systems we thought they stood apart from, you start to wonder if they ever stood for anything at all.